Hello, this is an intro video tutorial for Adobe After Effects. If you are new using After Effects, this would be a basic introduction to get familiar with After Effects interface and to do a very simple animation. And if you are already familiar with After Effects, this would be a good way to refresh your memory. So when you're opening After Effects, you might see a window like this. If your After Effects is different, if what you see is different what I have here, don't worry. We might have different versions of Adobe After Effects, and that's completely fine. So you want to close this window or just click on New Project. After doing that, you can see the interface of your Adobe After Effects. If you feel that your interface is different with what you see here, or you feel something is missing, you can simply go to Window menu, Workspace, and reset to default. So if there is a panel missing, by resetting your workspace, is gonna back to your default setting. The first thing we wanna do in Adobe After Effects is to create a new composition, because everything in After Effects starts with creating a composition. Compositions are like containers which hold your material, your whatever things that you imported to create a motion project, for example, images, videos, or whatever you create inside After Effects, such as shapes, text, and you animate them. So they are held together inside a composition, and you can create as many as composition you would like. But right now, we are gonna start with creating one composition. To create a new composition, we can click on New Composition here. We can go to Composition menu and choose New Composition. Or we can go to a panel in the left side called Project Browser. And at the bottom of this browser, we have this icon, which is for creating a new composition. It's a good idea to become familiar with this icon, because every time you create a composition, you see this beside your composition, so you know this is a composition. I click on this, and then I have the composition setting open. I can change the name of my composition to main comp. You can give a new name to your composition here, and then you have the basic information about your composition. The first thing is the preset. If you click, you have tons of preset here based on the media that you want to publish for. TV, maybe web, maybe Instagram, and etc. Right now the preset is HDTV 1080-24. 1080 is the height of your project. 24 is the frame rate. What is frame rate is in each second you can choose how many frames you have. So by choosing 24, I will have 24 frames in 1 second in my project. So this preset is pretty good. I'm not going to change that. Then I have the start time of my project, which I want to be from 0, and the duration of my project. It is 4 seconds right now. You can change this by clicking and changing the number, but I'm not going to change that. And then you have the background color for your composition, which I'm not going to change that either. I press OK, and as soon as I do that, I have my composition created inside the project browser. A quick intro to the interface of After Effects. On top part of your software, you have the menus. The menus contain a lot of commands such as saving your project, such as duplicating in edit, creating a new composition, etc. We are going to work with these more during the course of this course of animation. Then you have underneath menu bar, you have toolbar. These are the tools that allows you to work with stuff that you import to your composition. For example, selecting something, zooming to your composition, rotating something, creating a shape, text, pen tool, and etc. Some of these tools have a little triangle beside, which is if you click and hold, it shows more tools inside that one single tool. In the left side of your interface, you have the project panel. Any composition you create, you can see in the project browser. Also, if you import stuff such as image, video, audio, you can see them here. And the way you import them is by double-clicking inside the project browser and then browsing them from your computer, from the location you saved them. Right now, we don't want to import anything, so that's fine. And then in the bottom, you have timeline. Timeline is divided into two sections. The left part is your layer panel. Anything that you import in your project, you can drop in your layer panel and then you see them in your composition. You can also create stuff here, such as shapes, text, etc. And you see the layers of those shapes and text in your layer panel. In the right side, you have your timeline duration and the place that you create animation, you create keyframes. If you are not familiar with those terms, don't worry. We are going to work later and you're going to learn about them during this course. And in the right side, you have your side panels. These panels are very helpful. We work with them later. For example, to preview your motion, your animation, to add an effect, to work with your text, and etc. And in the middle, you have the viewport. This is where you see what happens in your project and you edit shapes and move them and etc. So right now our composition is completely empty because we don't have anything and we want to start with creating a shape. To do that, we have two options. We can go to the layer panel, right click, choose new and create a shape layer. Now we see a layer here, but the layer is empty. Now we need to create a shape inside and we can find the shapes on the shape tool, on the toolbar on top. We can choose any shape that we want and we can create something here by clicking and dragging inside your viewport. Now your layer has some content, which is a rectangle. But I'm gonna go back by going to edit and undo, creating a new shape. The second way you can create a shape is simply by going to the shape tool, choosing a shape that you want, and here I want to create a square. To do that and to not distort my shape, I'm gonna hold the Shift key on my keyboard and then click and drag so my shape is proportionate and not distorted. So as soon as I create a shape, a layer is automatically created in the layer panel. So as you see, you can either create a shape layer and then create a shape, or just create a shape and the shape layer is gonna be created automatically. I want to change the name of my layer, so I right click on the layer, choose rename and change the name of my shape layer. Okay. Now that I have my shape, I can change the color of my shape, for example, by clicking on the fill icon. Or I can add a stroke by clicking on a stroke. And right now the stroke size is 14 pixels. I can change this by clicking and dragging to left hand side. But I don't want a stroke, so I'm gonna click on a stroke option again and choose none and then press OK. So if you want to change the color and give a stroke to your image, you can find them in the toolbar on top. The next thing I want to show you is the properties of your layers. So you see there is a little triangle beside your layer. If you expand your layer, you have two properties, contents and transform. Right now we are gonna learn about transform. If I expand transform, I can see options such as anchor point, position scale, rotation and opacity. These are transform properties that are very useful throughout this course, so it's a good idea to become familiar with them. By changing the number of position, I can change the position of my shape. I can change the scale of my shape by changing the scale, and I can rotate my shape or change the opacity. There is another option called anchor point. Let me explain what is anchor point. Anchor point is this: if you look at your shape in the viewport, you see this point almost in the center of it. So this is called anchor point. Anchor point is the point from which you can transform your shape. What does that mean? Let me show you. So we can change the position of anchor point. There is a tool inside your toolbar called anchor point tool. If I click and go to my shape, I can change the position of my anchor point. To put it in the center of my image, I can hold Command on my keyboard, move the anchor point, and it's going to snap to the center. Now if I rotate my shape, is rotate from the center. But if I move the anchor point to the corner of my shape and then rotate my shape, the shape rotates from the corner. So as you see, the anchor point is the point from which you can transform your shape. Now what we want to do is to animate our shape. But let me first put it in the center of my composition. To move my shape, I can choose the selection tool and then move it around. To see where is the center of my composition, I can press apostrophe key on my keyboard, and then I see these borders and the center of my composition. And then if I press the apostrophe key again on my keyboard, they are going to disappear. Now let's animate this shape. Before starting to animate, let me explain what is animation. When we create a sort of change and record each step of that change through keyframes, and then we play through those keyframes, we have an animation. This might sound confusing, but I can show you in practice what does that mean. So I want to rotate my square and I want to record this rotation, this change, and then play it as an animation. What I do is I expand my transform options. Right now, if I rotate my shape and then move my time indicator in the timeline, nothing is happening. because I don't have any keyframe and I haven't recorded the changes that I've done to my shape. By the way, this is a time indicator that you can click and drag in your timeline. So if you have an animation here, you can see that animation. Right now we don't have any. Let's undo. So I choose rotation. To create the first keyframe, I have a stopwatch beside rotation, a circle that's called a stopwatch. This item is to create the first keyframe. As soon as I click the stopwatch, I have a little diamond in my timeline. I'm gonna drag it in the 2 frame ahead from 0 so you can see it. Right now, I have the first keyframe, and it is recording the rotation status of the current rotation status of my shape, which is 0. Now I want to rotate my shape in 90 degrees. So I need to change the position of time indicator, saying after 20 frames, I want my shape to rotate to 90 degrees. So I put my time indicator in a place that I would like to rotate the shape, and then I rotate my shape to 90 degrees. And a keyframe automatically is created. Then I want to keep my shape static for 2 frames. So I move my time indicator 2 frames ahead. So because I'm not rotating my square, no keyframe is gonna be created automatically. I have to do that manually. I go back to rotation. I click in this little diamond beside it, and a keyframe is created manually. Between these 2 frames, there is no change, so there is no animation. So I repeat the same process. Each 20 frame, I move my time slider ahead. I rotate my shape 90 degrees more. Then I keep my shape static for 2 frames by creating a manual keyframe. Again, 20 frames ahead, rotating 90 degrees more, keeping it static for 2 frames by creating a manual keyframe, and at the end, 2 frames before the end of my timeline, I rotate it to 360 degrees. So now I have a full rotation and some stop in the middle for this shape. To play your animation, you can press space key on your keyboard. And to stop it, you can press space key again. You can select your time indicator and drag it and see your animation yourself. Or you can go to the side panels, choose preview panel, and play your animation. Stop it, go to the first frame or last frame. You can also change the speed of your animation by putting the keyframes closer or further from each other. So for example, if I turn off selecting these 2 keyframes and dragging them closer to the first keyframe, my animation is gonna be much faster. The first rotation is gonna be much faster, and the second one is slower because there is less space between these 2 keyframes, so it's faster, and more space between the second motion, which makes it slower. So you can control the speed of your animation, but by the space that you determine between 2 keyframes. Now, please create this animation yourself and then go and see the next tutorial on parenting to be able to do the first exercise of this class.